Hello there! Today we're going to take a sidestep from beer and brew some non-alcoholic kombucha. Or mostly non-alcoholic. We'll start by collecting 2 gallons of filtered water. Split that into 1 gallon in a pot, and the other you can stick in the fridge to help us bring our solution temperature down later. Drop your hot side gallon on the stove and bring it to boil. Once you've reached a rolling boil, you can shut your heat off. For a 2-gallon batch, we'll be adding around 20 bags of tea. Green tea works, or black tea, or a mixture, whatever your preference is. Stir it together, and after 2 or 3 minutes, remove your tea bags. Now it's time to add the food for our SCOBY, in our case, 1 cup of table sugar. Make sure to stir it together to ensure all the sugar is dissolved. At this point, it's time to add our sweet tea solution to the fermenter. I'm using stainless, so I can add it hot, but if you're using glass or plastic, you might want to chill it down a little bit first. Speaking of chilling, our next step is adding our 1 gallon of chilled water. I use my thermometer to check the temperature before pitching the SCOBY, and a good thing too because my solution's still at a low-grade fever. I stuck it in the fridge for a few minutes to bring us down to that 75 to 80 degrees that we wanted, and once that target temperature was reached, it's time to pitch our SCOBY. The SCOBY is actually the name for the bacterial solution that starts the fermentation process, even though the pellicle gets most of the credit. You can find a SCOBY online, culture one from a store-bought kombucha, or just ask a friend that brews their own. Once we put a loose, breathable cover on top, in our case, a coffee filter, we'll secure it as best as possible, and then attach a temperature probe. I'm insulating mine with a piece of cut-up coaster, but feel free to use a less redneck way if you have the equipment. We'll be using a heating pad to keep our solution at 80 degrees. You can also keep it in a warm room, or let it ride at room temperature if you don't mind waiting a little longer. After a week or so, give your batch a taste to see how it's souring. Once it tastes good to you, it's ready to carbonate. I force carbonated mine by attaching it to a CO2 tank with a carbonation cap and shaking it up before adding some mixed berries. If you don't have a CO2 setup, you can also add fruit or sugar to a bottle and let it carbonate naturally. Then it's time to pour and enjoy. Final thoughts on the kombucha. I don't drink kombucha every day, but it is nice to have an alternative fizzy drink that's non-alcoholic, especially one that provides some health benefits, such as the probiotics that you find in a SCOBY culture. It's definitely not a healthy drink by any means. There's still a decent amount of sugar left, unless you let the SCOBY consume every bit of it, in which case it pretty much just tastes like vinegar. So usually, if you're going by taste, you're gonna have some sugar in the final product. But it is fun to add different fruits and sometimes vegetables to your kombucha and try different tastes. I've made kombucha in the past with the bottle conditioning approach, and I think definitely using the forced carbonation has improved the process for me personally. You just have to be careful that you keep the kombucha away from anything cold side if you're using your brewing equipment that you would use for beer. Also, I think using green tea improved my kombucha. I used a mixture, mainly black tea last time, and I think having the colors really contributes to the aesthetic and enjoyment of it, so probably would use green tea more in the future. But if you like trying something new, you don't mind having a space alien in your brew room for a couple weeks, give it a try. Cheers!